The day the ocean. Imagine a world where the ocean isn't blue, but purple. And instead of smelling like salt, it smells like death. This is the story of the Anoxic apocalypse. What color is our planet? Ask a kindergartner, and they will tell you. Earth is the blue marble. When we look from space, we see azure oceans, white clouds, and green continents. We assume it has always been this way. We call the ocean the lungs of the planet, the eternal source of oxygen and life. But there are chapters in Earth's biography that scientists were afraid to open for a long time. There were moments when our planet didn't look like a cradle of life, but like a crime scene. I want you to imagine standing on a beach in that era. But instead of the soothing sound of crashing waves, there is a heavy, oily silence. The water isn't foaming. It isn't blue or green. It is a thick, saturated purple, like ink, or like venous blood. You look up, the sun is barely visible. The sky is choked with a toxic neon green haze, filtering a dim, sickly light. And the scariest part? The smell. The air doesn't smell of salt and sea breeze. It smells of rotten eggs and decaying flesh. This is the smell of hydrogen sulfide. This isn't a sci-fi movie about an alien world. This is Earth during the Anoxic catastrophe. A period when the ocean stopped moving, oxygen vanished, and the water turned into a giant vat of acid. This is the scenario that killed life more efficiently than any asteroid. In this video, we will uncover how our blue planet once became a purple grave, and why this chemical nightmare could happen again. To understand the scale of this disaster, you have to delete everything you know about the modern ocean. Today, the ocean is defined by movement. Currents carry cold and warm water around the globe like a conveyor belt. Storms mix the layers, pumping oxygen down to the depths. Life boils from the surface to the abyss. But during the Anoxic event, the ocean died. It turned into a stagnant swamp on a global scale. Imagine a backyard pond covered in scum during a hot summer. Now multiply that pond by the size of the Pacific Ocean. The purple color of the water is not an artistic exaggeration. It is a biological fact. When oxygen vanishes from the water, regular fish, sharks, and plankton die instantly. The ocean becomes empty, but nature hates a vacuum. In that dead water, the ancient predators of the microscopic world began to breed. Green sulfur bacteria and purple bacteria. These are organisms that do not need oxygen. For them, oxygen is poison. They lived on Earth long before animals appeared, and now that higher life was dead, they reclaimed their throne. They filled the upper layers of the ocean. Their biomass weighed billions of tons. It was their specific pigments that stained the water an unnatural, violent violet pink. From space, Earth would have looked like a giant bruise. Massive slicks of purple slime drifted where whales and sharks used to swim. But the color wasn't the worst part. As these bacteria ate and multiplied, they released a gas. Hydrogen sulfide, that same gas you smell when you crack a rotten egg. Only here, the scale was industrial. The ocean was literally breathing rot. Giant bubbles of gas rose from the bottom, bursting at the surface and spewing poison into the atmosphere. It was a surreal nightmare world. Purple water, green sky due to the gas reacting with sunlight, and absolute silence. No seagulls crying, no splashing fish, just the quiet, viscous bubbling of gas. It was a corpse planet, decomposing while it was still alive. The day the ocean. How exactly does a catastrophe like this kill? It's not an instant explosion, like a meteorite impact. It is a slow, agonizing strangulation that you cannot hide from. Normally, the ocean works like a giant pump. Cold water at the poles sinks and pushes water toward the equator. This circulation delivers oxygen to the deep. Thanks to this, fish can live even at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. But in the era of the Purple Earth, the pump broke. Due to massive global warming, the water at the poles became too warm. It stopped sinking. The circulation halted. The ocean stratified like a lethal layer cake. On top, a thin film of warm water where a little oxygen remained. Below, miles of dead, cold water saturated with poison. Animals were trapped. Imagine schools of ancient marine reptiles, Mosasaurus or Plesiosaurs. They tried to dive deep in search of food, but they hit an invisible wall. At a depth of just 30 feet, the death zone began. One gulp of this water burned their gills. There was zero oxygen. In panic, they surfaced, gasping for air. But there was no food there. All the plankton was dead. Predators began to eat each other and then died of starvation and toxins. Bacteria turned the water into acid. Hydrogen sulfide is a potent neurotoxin. It blocks cellular respiration. An animal doesn't just die from a lack of air. Its cells stop producing energy. At the bottom of the oceans from that time, we now find true graveyards. Layers of rock packed with perfectly preserved skeletons. No one ate them. The scavengers, crabs, worms, bottom-dwelling fish were all dead too. Corpses simply fell into the black, stinking mud and lay there for millions of years until they were covered by silt. These aren't just fossils. This is a monument to a mass execution. The day the ocean, if the catastrophe had stayed in the water, life on land might have survived. Dinosaurs or ancient reptiles could have just stayed away from the beach. But gases know no borders. The ocean declared war on the continents. When the concentration of hydrogen sulfide in the water reached a critical point, it began to erupt into the atmosphere. Giant clouds of toxic gas, driven by the wind, crawled onto the land. Imagine a fog, a thick, yellow-green fog rolling over the hills. Animals grazing on the coast dropped dead after taking just a couple of breaths. The gas attacked the nervous system instantly. It was a gas chamber the size of a continent. But even those who retreated to the mountains were not safe. Hydrogen sulfide has another terrifying property. Rising into the upper atmosphere, it destroys ozone. The ozone layer is Earth's shield. It protects us from the sun's hard ultraviolet radiation. The gas from the Purple Ocean simply dissolved this shield. Ozone holes opened up all over the planet. A stream of cosmic radiation hit the Earth. The sun, the giver of life, became a killer. Ultraviolet light began to burn forests. It broke the DNA of plants. They became sterile. Trees stopped producing seeds. Paleobotanists studying pollen from that time see a horrific picture. The pollen looks ugly, twisted, mutated. Plants tried to reproduce, but radiation killed their offspring while they were still embryos. Earth was burning from two sides. From below, it was poisoned by toxic gas. From above, it was fried by radiation. Forests dried up and vanished. Food chains collapsed. Herbivores had nothing to eat. Predators were left without prey. It was the perfect storm of extinction. 95% of all living things on the planet disappeared. Evolution was thrown back hundreds of millions of years. Life hung by a thread. The day the ocean... What could stop the great ocean currents? Who pressed the off button on the planet's life support system? The answer is simple and terrifying. Volcanoes and heat. In Earth's history, such events happened several times. The most famous was during the Great Dying, the Permian Extinction, and later in the Cretaceous period. The script is always the same. Somewhere on the planet, the ground rips open, like it did in Siberia 250 million years ago. Seas of lava begin to pour out of giant cracks. We aren't talking about one volcano like St. Helens. We are talking about the Siberian Traps. Lava covered a territory the size of the continental United States. But lava isn't the killer. The killer is carbon dioxide. Volcanoes pump trillions of tons of CO2 into the sky. A runaway greenhouse effect begins. The temperature on the planet jumps by 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit, and heat is what kills the ocean. Here is the physics. Warm water cannot hold oxygen. Try leaving a soda in the sun. The gas escapes. The same thing happened to the oceans. They heated up and exhaled all their oxygen into the atmosphere. At the same time, the polar ice caps melted. Fresh water from glaciers flowed into the sea, diluting the salt. This finally broke the current system. The mechanism was triggered. Volcanoes brought the heat. Heat stopped the currents. Stagnation killed the oxygen. Bacteria conquered the world. Earth turned purple. It is a chain reaction that is almost impossible to stop until the volcanoes go quiet on their own. The day the ocean... How do we know the water was purple if it was millions of years ago? You can't see color in fossils. Scientists can't find a photograph from that time. But they found chemical fingerprints. Geologists studying rocks from those eras noticed strange layers. Usually, marine rock is limestone, light, white, full of shells. But in moments of catastrophe, the rock changes. It becomes black as coal. These layers are called black shales. This is compressed mud from the bottom of a dead ocean. It is black because it is full of undecomposed organic matter. In a normal ocean, corpses are eaten. In a dead ocean, they fall and lie there forever. But the main proof was found by chemists. They dissolved these stones and found unique molecules, biomarkers. These are the fossilized remains of fats and pigments from ancient bacteria. These molecules belong to only one type of creature, those specific purple sulfur bacteria. And they didn't just find a little bit. They found them in quantities that scream. The bacteria were everywhere. The entire ocean was saturated with them. It's like a blood test for a planet. We took a rock sample 100 million years old, and the test came back positive. The patient was terminally ill. The planet's blood was poisoned. Another sign is the lack of bioturbation, a fancy word that means a simple thing. No worms were digging holes. Usually, the ocean floor is riddled with tunnels from worms and mollusks. The layers of black shale are perfectly smooth. No one was crawling on the bottom because there was no one left to crawl. These were zones of absolute death. The day the ocean... Anoxic events are not a one-time mistake of nature. This is a systemic glitch that has happened many times. Oceanic anoxic events are a chronic disease of Earth. It flares up every time the climate gets too hot. Today, scientists are looking at the sensors with anxiety. The ocean temperature is rising again. In the Gulf of Mexico, in the Baltic Sea, off the coast of Oregon, so-called dead zones are appearing. These are huge patches of water where oxygen levels drop to zero. Fish die there, and toxic algae bloom. So far, these are local problems. The ocean is still coping. Its pump is still working. But the history of the purple Earth is a warning. Our planet's climate control system has breaking points. If we overheat the ocean, it can switch back to swamp mode. The bacteria that slept for millions of years haven't gone anywhere. They are waiting. They are always ready to take their planet back. Earth remembers what it's like to be purple. And looking at this history, we realize we are very lucky to live in the era of the blue ocean, and we better do everything possible to keep it that way.